Welcome back. Today on our journey through the Bible, we will learn about a judge blessed with miraculous physical strength.
For the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.
Samson. Our memory verse today is taken from Proverbs 1, verse 10. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. A son for Manoah and his wife. Following Gideon, God appointed 6 more judges to govern the Israelites. The Israelites had fallen into idol worship and were punished by oppression from the people of Ammon. God then sent Jephthah to judge them and deliver them from this oppression. Following this time of peace, Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord and were overtaken by the Philistines. In Israel, there was a man named Manoah. Manoah and his wife could not have children. An angel from God came to Manoah's wife and told her that they would have a child. The angel instructed her that she was not to drink any wine or strong drink, and that she was not to eat any unclean foods. He also instructed her that her son's hair was never to be cut because he was to be a Nazirite from the womb. After this, the angel left. She immediately told her husband what had happened. When he heard it, he prayed to God asking for instructions on how to raise the child. So, later the angel appeared to Manoah's wife a second time. She ran and got her husband and brought him to the angel. He again repeated the instructions on how she was to eat while carrying the child. Sometime later, Manoah's wife gave birth to a son, and they named him Samson. As Samson grew up, God blessed him. Out of the strong, sweet. When Samson grew up, he developed a liking for the Philistine women. His eyes fell on one particular Philistine woman he found in Timnath. So he went to his parents and asked them to arrange the marriage. His parents counseled him to consider a woman from Israel. Samson was insistent that the Philistine woman pleased him. Samson's parents did not realize that God would use this to provoke conflict with the Philistines, who were at that time oppressing the Israelites. So, Samson and his parents went down to Timnath to make arrangements for the Philistine woman. On the way, a young lion attacked Samson. Then the Spirit of God came upon Samson, and he killed the lion with his bare hands. He did not tell his parents about the lion. They made arrangements for the marriage with the woman in Timnath. Sometime later, when Samson returned to take his wife, he passed the lion's carcass on the way, and there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass. Samson took some of the honey and ate it, then gave to his parents, but he did not tell them that it came from the lion's carcass. The marriage feast was prepared, and 30 Philistine men were assigned to be Samson's companions for the wedding. During the pre-wedding celebrations, Samson gave his companions a riddle. If they could solve the riddle within the 7 days of the wedding, Samson would give them 30 sheets and changes of clothes. If not, they would owe him the same. They agreed. Then Samson told them the riddle. Out of the eater came forth meat. Out of the strong came forth sweetness. After 3 days, the companions could not figure the riddle. On the seventh day, they came to Samson's wife and told her to get the answer, or else they would burn down her father's house. So she went to him and cried, saying that he did not love her, because he did not tell her the answer to the riddle. Samson protested and said not so, because he hadn't even told his own parents. But she kept at him throughout the entire wedding feast, until he gave in and told her the answer on the last day. Quickly she told the Philistines the answer. So they came to Samson with the answer: honey taken from a lion. When they told him the answer, he knew that they had gotten it from his wife and was enraged. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he killed 30 men and took their clothes to pay his debt for the bet. Samson went home to his parents, and his wife was given to the man that stood as his best man. Jawbone of an ass. During the harvest time, after Samson had calmed down, he went with a gift to claim his wife. However, his father-in-law told him that she was married to another. Again, Samson was enraged. The Spirit of God again came upon him, and he caught 300 foxes. He tied them in pairs with firebrands between their tails. When he had lit the firebrands, he turned the foxes loose into the Philistines' cornfield. When the Philistines saw the destruction, they inquired how and why this happened. In retaliation, they burned Samson's father-in-law and his wife. This made Samson angry, and he killed the Philistines that killed his wife and father-in-law. After this, he went to live on the top of the rock Etam. The Philistines then came to the men of Judah, demanding that they turn Samson over to them for what he had done. So the men of Judah came to Samson, explaining the situation, and Samson agreed. They tied his hands with new rope and handed him over to the Philistines. When they arrived at a place called Lehi, the Philistines attacked him to kill him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson, and he burst the rope, and with the jawbone of an ass, he killed 1,000 Philistines that day. Delilah. Sometime later, Samson took a liking to another Philistine woman from Sorek, named Delilah. So the leaders of the Philistines came to her and instructed her to find out the source of his strength. They offered her 1,100 pieces of silver for the information. She agreed. Delilah set on her task. She asked Samson what the source of his strength was. Samson told her if he was bound with 7 green withs that had never been dried, then he would be weak like every other man. So she bound him with 7 green withs brought to her by the Philistines. There were Philistines waiting in her home. Then she cried to Samson, "The Philistines are upon you!" And Samson got up and broke the green withs. Delilah was upset that Samson had lied to her, but she kept at him. Samson, at another time, told her that if he were bound with new ropes that were never used, he would be as weak as any man. So she tried again, tying him with new ropes, and yelled, "The Philistines are coming!" Again the Philistines were lying in wait for him in her home. And again Samson got up, breaking the ropes like thread. Delilah was very upset with Samson for lying to her again, but she was relentless, asking Samson again what the source of his strength was. He said if the 7 locks of his hair were woven with the web, then he would be weak. So she did, and again she cried, "The Philistines are upon you." And again Samson got up and went with the pin and the weaving beam. His mercy endureth forever. Delilah was persistent. Again and again she wore on him, daily, for him to tell her the source of his strength. Finally he broke and told her. A razor had never touched his head. If his hair were to be shaved off, he would be as weak as any man. That night, when he fell asleep, she had men come in and shave off the 7 locks of hair off his head. Again she cried, "The Philistines are upon you." And Samson got up as he did before. But this time the Spirit of the Lord was not with him, and he was captured by the Philistines. While the Philistines had Samson in prison, they took out his eyes and bound him in brass chains. He was sent to grind grain in the prison. As he worked in the prison house, his hair began to grow again. One day, the Philistines were celebrating the capture of Samson and worshiping their god, Dagon. As their revelry continued, they sent for Samson so that they could mock him. Samson asked the boy that guided him to place him between the 2 main pillars that held up the temple. As they continued to mock him, Samson prayed to God that he would receive strength once more to take revenge on the Philistines. So God granted his request. With one hand on each pillar of the building, Samson bowed down, saying, "Let me die with the Philistines." He pushed down the main pillars, bringing down the building on all who were in it, killing himself and more Philistines than he had during his life. Now it's time for our activity. What was Samson to do to maintain his strength? Correct. In obedience to God, he was to not cut his hair. Second question. What was Samson's weakness? That's right. He had a strange affinity to Philistine women. Now, let's see if you can name some of the creative ways in which Samson fought the Philistines. All right, first one, he used lit foxes and sent them running through the Philistine cornfield. Yes, the jawbone of an ass he used to kill 1,000 Philistines. And yes, he brought down the pagan temple on thousands of Philistines. Now try to write or say the memory verse from memory. Then take a sheet of paper and draw a picture of Samson regaining his strength.
Yes, Jesus loves
Next time,
me.
we'll read about a
Yes,
faithful
Jesus loves
daughter-in-law.
me. Yes, Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so.